Good afternoon and welcome to the July 14th Committee of the Whole meeting. I'll be chairing this evening, Councillor McKenna. We have regrets from Councillor Quinn. We'll start our meeting with our land acknowledgement. On July 14th, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We're grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for the contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which, as you know, runs through Smith Falls. We're mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship and being mindful of generations to come. So the meeting's called to order at 5:01, and I have a motion that the July 14th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Mayor Pankow. Any changes, comments on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. As you review that agenda, does anyone have any disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest at this time? Seeing none, we have no minutes to approve, we have no delegations, and I'll turn to our CEO and ask if we have any director's reports.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We do indeed. We have one from Director McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This evening, I just wanted to advise Council and the folks at home that are watching this evening of the second round of public drop-in session that we're doing for the Rural Transit Feasibility Study. The town of Smith Falls has partnered with Lanark County, which Council is aware of. Folks at home may not be. The study in and of itself is a study that we're partnering up with Lanark County, undertaking a rural transit feasibility study to explore the potential of new public transit services through the broader county, inclusive of Smith Falls, with the aim of identifying a transit solution that is responsive to needs and priorities of broader residents throughout the county and Smith Falls. So we had a public drop-in session on May 21st here in Smith Falls at Town Hall. The second one that we'll be hosting here locally in Smith Falls will be on Wednesday, August 13th from 2 till 4 p.m. And again, it will be here in Council Chambers at Town Hall. So we want to hear from residents. The first session that we had back in May was fairly successful. We had quite a few people come through the door to meet the consultant, to meet myself as well, just to have a general discussion about transit and what it could mean for them who live locally. So we want to hear from residents. We'd like for people to join us for this informal drop-in session to learn more about the study and provide input to the project team. We need feedback from the community on the benefits and trade-offs of various transit options and scenarios to help develop what this could potentially evolve into down the road. So like I said, this is the second of two different pop-in sessions. There'll be sessions ran in Perth as well on the 12th of August, another one on the 12th of August in the afternoon in Almont, but locally here in Smith Falls it'll be hosted on Wednesday the 13th from 2 till 4 at Town Hall. Okay, thank you. Any questions on that?
Seeing none, thank you very much. I hope everybody gets out to that. Oh, CEO Morris.
Actually, it occurred to me I have another update not related to Director McMahon, if I may.
I thought you were going to ask him a good question on transit, but
Just yes, don't miss the bus. That's my advice. So speaking of not missing the bus, with Director Clark being away, some people may be wondering what's happening with the former water treatment plant. There hasn't been a lot of activity down there in several weeks. So the reason for that is originally we were working with our insurer to identify a way to structurally support the subsurface area, the basement essentially of the former building. And the idea initially was to fill it with a type of concrete, and it's relatively deep because of the tanks that used to exist to treat water. So it's about 6 meters deep from the surface. Through a number of discussions, we determined that there is a better way to ensure the structural integrity of the foundation without filling it with concrete. So that approach is being engineered. It required a new building permit because it's a different structure, basically. So that work is going on, and once all the planning and the engineering is done, they'll begin working on it. So we don't have a time frame yet, but the project is not finished. The foundations of the building will be capped, and a railing will be put around the capped surface to protect people from the water. So all that has yet to be done. We are mindful that there are other activities that will be occurring in that space. The biggest one will be the Confederation Bridge, removal of the old structure and foundations and footings and all that stuff to prepare for the new bridge. So we want to make sure there aren't any contractor conflicts when that happens. The other big event among many is RibFest coming up in August. So we want to make sure that there is space for people to park and pedestrians to move and so on during that large event. So be assured there is a coordination going on. It's just not obvious when you're at the site, but we hope to bring that project to a conclusion soon so we can make room for other activity down by the park.
Does that mean that the road will be open soon? Or waiting for the other work?
Yeah, we certainly, we're trying to get access to the Parks Canada parking lot. That's the number one priority. I doubt Old Mill will be open because once the former water treatment plant's finished, I expect we're going to see the contractor come in to start with the bridge, and they'll need space, including the road allowance. But the immediate objective is to get the parking lot reopened.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks for the update. I'm sure the public appreciate that. That's it for the director's reports, and we have no committee of the whole consent reports. Priority issue number one is the 2025 Heritage Pedestal Condition Report with Marie Elmsley. Welcome, Marie.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Staff are looking for direction from council on the type of materials to use going forward into 2026 when replacing deteriorated heritage pedestal faces or installing new ones. MHC has asked staff to explore the cost of using bronze or aluminum instead of the alu panel that is currently being used. The lifespan on the alu panel is 5 to 10 years, where the bronze or aluminum is 25 years. The more durable materials will cost an estimated $4,000 per pedestal. The MHC has a budget enough for about to replace 2 of those this year. There are 4 that are in very rough shape. 3 of those have now been removed, as noted in your report. These pedestals showcase our history and our heritage for residents and visitors alike. It's important to keep them in good shape. Staff recommend using better quality materials, noting that additional funds will be requested annually and that we would replace a few each year until they're all replaced. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, and thank you, Marie. I also would like to say thank you to the Municipal Heritage Committee. These pedestals tell a great story about our town. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I fully support the staff recommendation.
And Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, thanks, Marie, for bringing it tonight. The committee's had a hard time since this project came forward about 10 years ago of keeping the pedestals in good shape. And the pedestals as they exist now are bilingual because they're really meant to be a tourism tool. So the problem is when we keep putting resources into replacing something that really doesn't do the job, we're spending more money on replacing them than we are on moving forward. So to save time and to save the regular maintenance, I think it's better to make a bigger investment at the start, have it last for 30, 40, or 50 years, and hopefully we never have to talk about it again.
Okay. Mine's a question, and it may not be for you, Marie, but it's more, if the committee is wanting us and the staff, or why would council have to approve you looking into the costs? Why wouldn't staff or just the MAC go ahead and look into the costs and then come back with a report? It just save a step. It just occurred to me, like, why CO Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's being done as a courtesy, understanding two things or two impacts. First is we don't have the budget to replace all four, so we'll only do two, meaning two will remain vacant until we get more money in the budget. And secondly, to give you a glimpse into what will be in the 2026 budget for this purpose.
Okay, that's fine. I'm supportive. I'm seeing nodding heads around. So we have your consensus that we support staff recommendations. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
And then we have the award of contract trenchless cured in place pipe program with Director McMunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report I have in front of you this evening is with respect to a contract award for contract 25-PW-003 trenchless cured in place pipe program. So as you recall, we replaced a number of sanitary sewer collection pipes underneath the rail lines last year, primarily from a risk mitigation perspective, right? It's obviously difficult, if not impossible, to excavate underneath a rail line. So this is a really good option in that particular case to run a structural liner through the pipe, which adds about 50 to 60 years to longevity of that pipe system. So this particular project that we're looking at doing this year is to replace 600 by 900 millimeter concrete pipe that runs from Elmsey Street, just runs through underneath the north side of the outdoor rink at the arena complex, runs through the parking lot, adjacent to the parking lot, and then between the youth arena and the Memorial Center, and then to a manhole on the other side. So there's two sections of pipe there that we want to replace. It's about 248 meters of combined sewer pipe. So combined meaning it conveys stormwater and sanitary sewer as well. The condition of pipes generally in decent shape, good to fair, I would say. Albeit this again is just a risk mitigation activity. We run a liner through it. It adds about 50 to 60 years to that asset. If there was ever an issue with that pipe running, particularly between the two arena facilities, it'd be very, very difficult to try to excavate and do a repair on that. So we did have a fairly good response to the tender. When we advertised it this year, we had 5 respondents. The low bid came in from Clean Water Works Incorporated at $233,132, excluding HST. We had $200,000 in the budget, in the 2025 capital budget for this project this year. So we would be looking for an out of budget additional expense of $37,235.12 with our 1.76% net HST. So happy to take any questions through the chair if there are any.
I'm looking at my colleagues. Mayor Penko?
Yeah, thanks, Director McMunn. When you say, I guess, fair condition, poor condition, but in both situations, I mean, the pipe has enough integrity that this Curium pipe liner can go in and not going to run into any impediments that would cause a problem, I would assume.
Correct. Yes. So we've facilitated a CCTV inspection, a camera inspection of the sewer. So it's perfectly good prime candidate for this process, meaning that the pipe is still has integrity. We don't have any missing sections of pipe, albeit there's some marginal longitudinal cracks and stuff in the pipe, and that's pretty much can be said for any pipe that's been in the ground for any length of time. We wouldn't be looking at running a structural liner through this pipe if we had serious concerns of the integrity of the pipe. So to answer your question, it's a good candidate for this process. Yeah.
And when you say 600 millimeter by 900 millimeter, is it oval shaped?
It's yes, it's kind of a kind of an egg shape, but not really. Like if you turn an egg more on its side, it's oh, I sent an email to you and I forget the name of it, escapes me. Eccentric pipe, I think is what it's called. Something to that effect.
That's uncommon.
It's a common pipe, particularly for storm sewers. But it is a bit of an oddball shape.
Okay.
It is what it is. We can, we put the tender out. We identified to contractors through the tendering process what the pipe was. I would say it's less common than a round pipe, but there's lots of it out there, and they still manufacture it, so it can be done. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good job. Thank you. You have my support.
Thumbs up from Councillor Breton? Is that, yeah, okay. And Councillor Miller, and I think Councillor McGuire had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And thanks, Paul. I was wondering, kind of on the lines of Mayor Panko, what point does the pipe no longer become a candidate for this kind of treatment, and what, is it good, fair, poor? How bad can it get, I guess, before?
Yeah, so through the chair, I mean, if we had, through a CCTV inspection, a camera inspection of the pipe, if we were missing, say, a bottom of pipe or any section of the pipe in and of itself, we would have to look at doing we'd have to excavate and do a spot repair of the pipe in that location to address, the very, very poor lack of integrity of a pipe in certain locations. That wouldn't necessarily suggest that we couldn't line a pipe down a street from a manhole to a manhole, but we would have to take into consideration whether or not it's not a fix for every pipe. Sometimes pipes are just simply too far gone, and then we'd be looking at replacement, if that answers your question. Yeah.
And just to follow up to that, I was wondering, is there anything as we talk about redeveloping the arena property that we could be doing as part of that development that would mitigate the risks associated with these pipes in the future?
I would consider it to be the opposite. I think if we were considering a redevelopment of the youth arena or the broader complex, that we'd want to go in and do this work prior to, so we can save the integrity of the pipe that we have now, and we can line it, so then it would give us some assurance that we're not going to have any negative impact on the pipe through any construction activity. Right, so it's fairly deep. So I don't think it would be. I think this is a process that we'd want to do prior to any other work on that property.
Just through the chair, as a design constraint, is it something that we can build the site differently to mitigate the risk of this pipe passing through it, or is it I'm thinking the more we build above it, eventually someday it'll need to be fixed again. What can we do to keep it easy to fix, I guess, when it comes?
So through the chair, to answer your question, I think this is a solution for now. If we were considering, like I said, structural lining of any pipe will garner you 50 to 60 years life expectancy, and perhaps longer. I mean, cured in place pipe hasn't been. I don't know. There's been enough in the ground from 60 years ago to really get the evidence-based information to say whether or not it can actually last 80 or 100 years. I would think that, a liner is fairly thin in nature, right? It's, sub-centimeter in wall thickness. We could look at doing a liner down the road again if capacity of that pipe wasn't an issue, or we could simply look at a rerouting of that pipe. Perhaps bring it down Elmsey Street, down Lansdowne to James Street, and out that way, as opposed to going underneath the arena complex. But I think for this point in time, I think this is the right way to address. It's a non-issue. This is just risk mitigation. Line the pipe so we can all sleep at night. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor Panko, you had a follow-up?
So I know we've done this type of procedure many times, and maybe not annually, but pretty close to annually, I would think, over the last number of years. And I know, so last year going under the rail yards, this year going under the youth arena. I think they're very proactive measures to try and make sure we don't have big problems in the future. But do we have many other places in town where we have pipes under buildings that within you plan to bring the same approach in the next few years?
Yes, through the chair, I'm aware of one other location. It's a pipe that comes down closer to Chambers Street. There's a pipe that comes underneath, well, I think it's H&R Block. From the backside, there's quite a large pipe that comes underneath there and comes out and ties into Beckwith Street, and then makes its way down Beckwith to Chambers, and away it goes. So that would be another one that we've kind of had on our radar for this same type of process, right? The integrity of the pipe's there, but again, it's risk mitigation. That would be one perhaps we look at for 2026.
Okay, thank you.
SEO Morse.
Fun fact, an egg shape is an ovoid. Think of a void with an O at the front. So it's an ovoid pipe.
We'll avoid that in the future.
Exactly.
Thank you. I'm seeing a consensus to support your recommendation, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good one, Ben's first.
We're moving on to 9.3, which is the shared services agreement. SEO Morris is probably going to bring that to our attention.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Grenke is unable to be in attendance this evening, so I'll speak to this one. So we had a reach out from our friends at Tay Valley Township, and they're in need of some assistance with building inspection services, primarily plans review, which can largely be done off-site, meaning here. So in the past, we've had shared services agreement with others, most recently Merrickville Wolford. We had a planning shared services agreement with Montague and several others, so it's not uncommon. We're bringing this forward because we do have a small amount of capacity right now within building services, so we feel this is a good way to help a neighbor and fill up some capacity and generate a bit of revenue for the town. So they would like to begin as soon as practical, and we are set to do so, and we could begin as early as tomorrow if council sees fit to make to approve the entering such an agreement. I would say most importantly that any time that we would spend would not in any way inhibit or slow down our own work that we're doing. So obviously the work here would be the priority. So we think we can manage both.
Comments, questions? Yeah, seeing thumbs up around the horseshoe, and just agree with you that anytime we can help a neighboring, I know we have reached out and gotten help from others, and I think it's great. So please tell Mr. Grenke that council supports the recommendation. We'll move on to council remuneration survey with Director Dauber.
Good evening through the chair and council. Staff underwent a review of current compensation at Smith Falls, and then reached out to some comparators around Ontario. Staff took a stab at it in order to have some other municipalities participate and provide the information. Went back our second time to get a bit more. We didn't get a whole lot, but by that point, most municipalities had put up their remuneration report. So we were able to at least get the salaries, a nice big swath of samples for the salaries. And then to a lesser degree, we did get a little bit more for some of the other categories. And the big highlights from it are that, as you can see in the charts, the mayor's salary is under by about just about $6,800, while councillor is below the average by about 14% at $22,000. The per diems were a little bit below some of the others, and then the one that was slightly over was our mileage rate at 3 cents per kilometer. We also looked at what some of the benefits were that councils receive in other municipalities, and Of the 15 that we're able to get the information from, 7 of them provide OMERS or offer OMERS to council, and 7 offer health and dental benefits. And they're not in alignment. It wasn't the same. As you can see in the beginning, it was very sporadic as to who does what. There were a few kind of outstanding pieces. One municipality offered council the health and dental benefits, but they actually paid all their premiums. So it was a little bit all over the place. So what we try to do is just concentrate on something we can kind of sink our teeth into and do some comparisons, one municipality to another. I'd be happy to take any questions from council.
Okay, I know Councillor Robinson had a question first.
Thanks, Paul. This is first off, I've just got some thoughts that I put down, but I would like to thank you for bringing the report together. It's something that's been needed for a while, and I appreciate the work that you put into doing it. Since it came up at Committee of the Whole during the staff compensation review, I've been thinking about this. The job has changed over the years. There's more responsibility, more time involved, and expectations have definitely grown. If we don't keep up with that, we risk making it harder for good people to put their names forward, especially with the cost of living what it is today. Now, I did notice that 7 of the 15 municipalities surveyed offered benefits like health and dental. I don't think we necessarily need a pension plan for council, but health and dental could go a long way. It's a small cost, but it could make a real difference, especially for people who don't have those benefits through other work. At the end of the day, it's about making sure serving on council is something more people can realistically consider. And there's an election coming up in just over a year, and I'd like to see us create the conditions that attract a strong, diverse group of candidates who feel supported and stepping up to serve. So as a result, I'm in favor of increasing the compensation for mayor and council and for supplying health and dental benefits by the beginning of the next term. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor McGuire and then Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Paul. I don't get to say this very, very often, but I agree with all of Councillor Robinson's points. I think one thing, though, to note on the OMERS side of it is that that could be a great incentive for somebody that's younger for getting involved. And if we want to have a diverse swath of voices at the table, I think that's one that may not appeal to somebody that may be retired collecting a pension, but that somebody that's not. It could be the thing that maybe convinces them to put their name forward. When we're looking at the remuneration council by council, I think we should stick our comparators to urbanized municipalities, or at least municipalities that have an urbanized area over 6,000 people, because some of the comparators that are here skew the data low, but they don't meet all summer. They might only meet once or twice a month during the regular session. And there's just a significantly different level of responsibility than if you're operating a water treatment system and all of that kind of liability that we get to read about. So overall, I'm supportive of it, but I just have those caveats with the data and hope we can come up with a fair result. And I don't know, I think like they've had this debate in North Grenville and the benefits and pension, and it seems that their council is stronger for going forward, and it seems to be a relatively marginal cost. So I'm hoping we don't have to have the same kind of prolonged discussions.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Robinson just wanted to jump back in before I go to Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, just a quick little thing. Wasn't that I'm not in favor of the pension. It's just not everybody is like the mayor and Councillor Brennan, been here a long time. They could have benefited from it.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, if somebody was only here for 4 or even 8 years, then would it really be worth their while to add to it? But I mean, anything's better than nothing. But I just want to say I'm not against the pension, because it's not a big amount of money.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, just a historical question, and I don't remember doing this in the last 3.5 terms, maybe once. So do we know the last time we've made an adjustment to council salary? I should have given
The
you that
existing
before.
bylaw is dated 2011.
I think it was
I don't know.
the first term, so that would have been between 2010 and 2014. I think that was the first term for us.
2011.
So obviously we've held back, and I agree with my colleague. I think that we need to have people interested in the job. It's not like we're all here in it for the money. Let's put it that way. That's not the case at all. And so the other part is for the other question I'd have is, I hear mentioned the OMERS and the pension or the health and provisions would be minimal cost. Do we know how much that would be?
Through the chair, I don't have those figures. I know that when we're talking about the salaries, it's probably overall about a $30,000 touch
For
for the
everybody.
budget. But I would have to come back for health and dental and OMERS. I didn't calculate
Okay.
those.
Okay, so I'd be interested in that. Other than that, I'm in favor of adjusting our salaries. It's hard to say I'm going to give myself a raise, but when I'm talking about, 15 years ago or 14 years ago is the last time, I think it's time. So
Well, actually, you're giving whoever wins the next election the raise.
True.
You're not giving yourself one yet.
with this, it would
We're
happen
not
right
gonna
now.
ben- We're not going to benefit from this decision
No.
in our term. Right.
So that would be next term. Is that what we're talking about?
Through the chair, yes, that's what the recommendation is in the report.
Okay, I didn't read that.
Makes me feel better.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Dober. We are approaching our next election, and I think it's really important to review how we treat the remuneration, especially to get more women involved in politics and people from minority populations. We want to make sure there's enough money to cover childcare costs and transportation and other barriers that sometimes see these groups left out of this horseshoe. And so I think we all know that this is not a lot of money, but it is a gesture as we approach the election to try and ensure that we have great candidates for our community.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. And I guess honestly, it's always put a lot more time in than really what we're compensated for. As Councillor Brennan said, we're not here. If we were here for what we're getting paid, we wouldn't, it wouldn't be a motivator at all. But a couple of questions. I do agree with Councillor McGuire's comments as it relates to rural versus urban, and also single tier versus upper lower tier, because there is a difference. And a lot of things come across here that don't come across the council of the lower tier. It's dealt with at the county level. And so I think that the workload here is higher than what it would be for many other lower tiers, even the urban lower tiers. The other factor is, so of course, two of us serve on two county council committees, and our compensation is $100 per meeting, which I don't think has not changed since, again, even prior to maybe 2011. I don't know. And we look at our colleagues at county council. I think they're like 18,000. I think is their compensation for being on county. Now they have probably double the meetings we would have, but it's still not even remotely close to any comparison, because it's not just the time of being at the meeting, it's the preparation time as well that occurs. So it's a fairly large commitment that Councillor McKenna and I take, and whoever's in these chairs in the future will be taking, that should probably be considered as well. Also thinking, and the reality is, I think traditionally this has been an environment for people who are retired, or in some cases, like myself, self-employed, who has some degree of flexibility. But I think we're eliminating potential people around the horseshoe based on the fact that unless you have that flexibility or you are retired, so certain demographics wouldn't be able to be councillors or mayor based on what's the current environment. So I certainly agree supporting, but I'm wondering, since this is not a rush, if you could go back and maybe look, considering our comments tonight, looking at the single tier issue, separated single tier, as well as the urban versus rural, because I think the numbers would change.
Is that it?
That's would be for my comments.
Yeah, just a quick look at the comparators, the single tiers are much lower. Our average would go down.
A couple that were there.
Yeah, there's only Carlton Place that I'm aware of. Anyways, is there support for asking the director to go back and just look at the comparators of small urban, including a single tier? So I'm seeing that's okay. And there was support for looking at the costing out of the health and dental and pension. And there was a request to review the per diem for county council. And if we're doing that, I would throw in public health appointment, because those members attending that get a per diem from their municipality. I believe Smith Falls doesn't have that in there. So it's just to review those for the future. And again, to remind the public that as this goes forward, this would be for the next duly elected council to benefit from. So there's a thank you for doing this. Is that it, folks? Is that enough information for you, Director Dever?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. And we'll move on. You might as well stay right there. We'll talk about the asset management plan update.
Thank you. So through the chair, I didn't want to come back and, well, I thought seriously about doing a long drawn out presentation, but thought that maybe council had enough information from the presentation on June 23rd and just kind of look at what's changed. One of the concerns really was including the new water tower as opposed to the old water tower. And then there was identification of the airport assets and maybe that they had not been complete. So we went back and looked at the draft and came up with an update to change the figures for the water tower. I've got some notes in there talking about the replacement cost of the water tower going from 2.3 million to 9.8 million on page 40. And that the overall effect of that is increasing that yearly capital requirement from water. It went from 4% to 4.2%. Now, on the other side with the airport, it was the tarmac, and they were included in the roads as opposed to being included in the airport assets. So that's those figures went up to 2.1 million from the 300 and change thousand that had been in that first iteration. So there's no impact to the yearly requirement because it just moved from roads, which is tax based, to the airport again, which is tax based. So now it's just classified correctly. Those were the two main changes. And I've included a copy of the updated asset management plan. One thing that had been identified on page 41, and it's a very, very small thing, and it really doesn't change anything. But on page 41, the colors representing very good and good are green for very good and blue for good. And you'll notice on page 41, the elevated tank is blue, but it's brand new, so it should be green. So we'll just get that changed.
Oh. That was my question. I was it better be very good.
So we will get that changed, and then I would just I would open up to council for any questions.
So would the pie chart change as well as the percentage of overall things that are very good, or is it just the color that was off the numbers?
Well, through yourself, I believe that would change the pie chart as well. Yes.
Okay.
So we'll get that green updated, and we will get that pie chart updated.
Great. Comments or questions? Really good information. Councillor McGuire?
So the road data still jumps out at me of only 5% very poor and 17% poor. Understanding that only 82% of the roads have been assessed. What kind of margin of error liabilities there for? Because it just doesn't meet this test of driving around town and saying this is a fair to very good experience. So.
And I would agree with you on that conversation. Sorry, through the chair. There's a number of things that are going to be updated. This is a good dashboard and a starting point to lay a foundation for how we move forward. If you don't mind, I'm going to address that question, but put it in a context of a slightly larger, if that's okay. There are some pieces that are going to change the numbers. One of the pieces is some of the work that's being currently done, the BCA, for example. Right now, like many municipalities.
Just not use acronyms.
Oh.
The BCA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Building condition assessment. I've done that in
Public.
previous meetings. Sure, absolutely. So the building condition assessments are being done, and Smith Falls, like many municipalities, when starting out with asset management, looked at a building and said, okay, and I'm going to kind of make some stuff up just to kind of make it relevant. They would look at the building and said, okay, the foundation and the walls and the roof, they're good for 75, 100 years. The HVAC is good for 15 to 20 years. Windows are good for 15, and put that all together and just said, hey, you know what? Let's just call it 50. There's our average, and we're going to move forward. As asset management has progressed, and we've moved from the basically the infant stage to the toddler stage of asset management, it's been realized that throws the numbers out, because you're looking at a 50-year costing structure for the whole building, which is not really accurate. So when the building conditions assessments are done, that will allow us to set up an asset for the building, and then subcomponents for all those other pieces using a structured formatting system. The other big piece with the roads is that currently all of our assets and all of those projections are done based on historical cost. So we've put an estimated useful life, or EUL, of what we believe is the lifespan that we're going to get out of it. And that is evident, or it's shown through our total capital asset policy, which sets the amortization schedule. So in the financial statements with the, I'm sorry, I'm taking a long way around, but I will get to the point. That's set by to establish what our amortization rate is going to be. So again, moving from the infancy stage and into the toddler stage, it's also been identified that a much more accurate representation is to do condition analysis. So we're moving from historical cost basis and estimated useful life basis. So asphalt roads, I believe a lot of them are 25 years, but it doesn't take into account the traffic counts. Some roads have a much higher traffic count, therefore the estimated useful life are likely it's going to be less than 25 years. And other roads might have a much lower traffic count, so therefore it may get more than 25 years. So there's a lot of work ahead to clean up the data. And one of the big pieces is to move away from that historical cost basis, or that estimated useful life based on history and what we've decided on average we'll get out of those assets. So I think, again, this is a document that still needs some work within the system, within our citywide system, in order to produce more accurate information. But with this document, we've met the check marks of what's required by the province, and now we're setting a standard to say, okay, here's the basis of where we're starting. And as we do this other work, we're then going to update the figures moving forward, and then come back with a regular update. The province is requiring an updated asset management plan every 5 years. Because of the fact that we are doing the building condition assessment, the engineering department is looking at all the roads and trying to intersect that with the requirements of underground to try and align it so that we're not duplicating or putting down a road and then cutting it up 5 years later in order to replace the infrastructure underneath. And we're also doing the IT strategy, which will update that component. It's a much smaller component, but nonetheless, it's still a vital component. When those pieces of information come in with these new studies, we will be looking at it on a condition analysis, and we will be looking at on a more of an estimated useful life as opposed to our historical or our amortized life. And I think that will bring probably a little more satisfaction, or as you're looking at it and you're saying, you know, that seems out, and I would agree, yeah, it is out. But we are taking steps forward to change that data. When I came with a report before the presentation of the of the asset management plan in June, one of the pieces we talked about is we have this work that's outstanding, which we're recommending that we do an update to an asset management plan in 26. It's not a full new asset management plan. It's a much smaller piece where we're just adjusting those portions from that report and just making an adjustment or an appendix, not an appendix, an addendum to our asset management plan in 26. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but I wanted to kind of capture a number of different things.
I find it, I'm an asset management plan fan, so I like hearing that level of detail. So we're toddlers, we might even be in kindergarten, and before we graduate from grade 8, we've got, I think you have a 10-year window on this for the financial side of it. Even as early stages, understanding it's art and science, it sounds like. We're going to keep refreshing that as we go forward. We're still confident with the dollar numbers that to get it paid for, to reach that equilibrium within 10 years, we have that gap of 5.7 million or whatever it was. That could be tweaked as well over the coming years.
Yeah, through the chair, absolutely. It was a 15-year plan, as what the recommendations were to take to assign a 0.5% increase to the tax levy for the full tax levy to add to what we currently move into reserves, tax-based reserves every year. And the recommendation was 4.2% on the water. Currently, we put it up 5.5%. I know I'm repeating myself, but the numbers have changed a little bit. We currently increased by 5.5% for the water. So 4.2% is recommended to take that and capture it on capital. So the difference between the two, if we were able to, capture the increase in the operating, we would be in compliance and kind of golden. But we'll have to have a look at that and say, in that 0.8 plus the 5, so the 1.3%, are we able to capture the full operating cost for water? And on the other side, it was, I believe, it was a 3.1. Sorry, I don't have it quite in front of me quite now, and that's a 3.5% increase. So then we'll have to look at that. If we're going to dedicate that to capital, are we able to capture operating in the others, and the other portion of it, or do we have to look at the possibility of going up at a slightly higher rate? And that'll be a discussion that we'll have during the budget process. So that captures it within the 15 years. As far as what those recommendations are, I feel that we have a good amount of data. We know we need some refinement, but the data that's in there is good. And that might tweak. Those numbers might change slightly as we process the information, as we refine the data within the system, and as we update our reporting schedules, as we update our reports moving forward and get better concepts of how we move forward, that will change. But I believe it's a good starting point.
Okay. The ask is that council adopt the 2025 asset management plan as presented tonight with those modest updates. So it will be posted on the website and submitted to the Ministry of Infrastructure as legislated. Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I certainly support that. And I want to thank yourself, Paul, and all the other managers in the town. A heck of a lot of work and a long process. And it's something that there's no getting around doing if we want to deal with the upper tier. And so like you said, it's a roadmap going forward, and it's going to help us, and it's going to help future councils as well. And I think it's a new way of doing business, and I think it's a good way of doing business. So fully support it.
I'm seeing nods and thumbs up. So you have your direction, Director Dabber. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. And 9.6 is Municipal Accountability Act with Clerk Costello. Bill 9.
Thank you.
As council may be aware, Bill 9 is in second reading right now. Now's our opportunity to put any comments in if we choose to do so. So as council's aware, back in 2018, we established a code of conduct. Actually, Smith Falls had one previous to that. In 2018, it became mandatory through legislation that municipalities have codes of conduct in place. So we do have a code of conduct in place. We did have some say what was put into that code of conduct, and ours mimics many of the ones in Lanark County. But we do have our own protocols and procedures in our code of conduct. Bill 90 would change that and make it more standardized process as well as a standardized policy. They're looking to prescribe a code of conduct for members of councils as well as they're looking at requiring training. We already do that as well, but this would be mandatory training that would be mandated for all of council and local boards. They're also looking to make a recommendation that the Integrity Commissioner of Ontario, that a member's seat be declared vacant if the Municipal Integrity Commissioner is of the opinion that certain criteria have met. And there's 4 criteria that are listed in the report that the member has contravened the code of conduct, that it's a serious violation, a serious in nature violation. The member's conduct that is subject of the inquiry has resulted in harm to the health and safety or well-being of any persons, and that the existing penalties are insufficient to address the contravention. So if the Integrity Commissioner satisfies that the criteria for removal and disqualification have been met, they can make a recommendation to council to declare the seat vacant. It is then up to the municipal council to declare that seat vacant by vote, and it's got to be a unanimous vote. Right now, Bill 9 also proposes that if there is an inquiry and the Municipal Integrity Commissioner, in our case it would be Mr. Fleming, would have the ability to make a recommendation that the Integrity Commissioner of Ontario, that the member's seat be declared vacant. So the Municipal Integrity Commissioner would not have the jurisdiction to declare a seat vacant, only the Provincial Integrity Commissioner. Some argue that the removal should be made by an impartial body. Some would argue that this removal of somebody from municipal council should be made by the council from which they sit on, either by a 50% majority or 2/3 majority. There was a paper attached from OMAA that indicates a 2/3 majority for something of this nature if the municipal council has to vote on declaring a seat vacant. We have put forward some options for council to consider for comment if they so choose. Both the first options agree that if there is a standard province-wide code of conduct, that it simply be a minimum standards. It kind of mimics what happens with the Building Code Act, and that councils would still be given the opportunity to make the code of conduct their own. In option A, we indicate that removal of an elected official would be at the discretion of the Provincial Integrity Commissioner. Option B indicates that removal of elected officials should be done at the discretion of municipal council. So that's up for debate if council wishes to do so. Council can also, in the resolution in both, we mentioned the minimum standard, as well as if they do impose this new code of conduct, that the province would pay for the training of municipal councils. So all of this, I attached Bill 9 as well as the paper by OMAA, bringing forward to council's debate, and if they wish staff to submit any resolutions or any comments to the province, we have until August 11th, I believe, to do so.
It's August 18th, the written submission, according to your report.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Brennan, then Councillor Miller.
Thank you, and I really applaud the province for bringing this forward, although I do have some questions. If it's my understanding would be, and I think you've mentioned it when you were just talking, the province is going to write a code of conduct for 400 municipalities.
Correct.
So I think your comment may have been, we should be able to adapt that for our own purposes.
Correct.
So I support that. Also, in this legislation, it just talks about, I think, egregious violations or offenses, whatever you want to call it. Would the council, through the local integrity commissioner, be able to provide sort of a step up in sanctions, i.e., reduce pay or, banning it from meetings and that sort of thing? Is that included in this bill? I admit I haven't read the bill, so I've just read the reports.
I would have to check on that, Councillor Brennan, but I'm happy to do so.
Okay, so I think I did read something where the mayor in Westport, Robin Jones, had mentioned something about that AMO would like to see something like that gives discretion for, not just the firing of a councillor, which is a very, very serious matter, but some step ups to that, even a verbal apology in some cases is all that's necessary. And the final one is with the final determination of the fate of a councillor. I believe that a duly elected council should have a say in that. I think it's a real stretch to expect a unanimous vote, because I don't think that would happen, especially in a contentious issue like that. So I think a majority would be appropriate for that, and I think it should come from council with in hand the recommendation from the Provincial Integrity Commissioner, who recommends that Councillor A should be removed from office. With that recommendation, I think that a majority of council should be able to make that determination. So
Thank you.
that's it.
Just to be clear, a majority, not 2/3.
Majority.
Simple majority.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Any comment? Okay, then Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Thanks, Clerk Costello. I'm glad that the province is finally addressing this. There was a situation of significant inappropriate behavior in one of our neighbors a year or two ago, and it was allowed to fester and put staff and other council members in a very difficult position. So that really drives me to support your comments in option A, to empower the Integrity Commissioner to remove council members for those very major code conducts, code violations.
So if I could just seek a little clarification, Councilor Miller. Do you like the fact that the provincial integrity commissioner would recommend it, the removal? They've gathered enough evidence to give it back to council and then council vote on it, or have that integrity commissioner with the authority to remove that municipal council?
It's my opinion that the Integrity Commissioner should have the authority to remove in serious situations.
I think that's how the legislation is currently written. Yeah.
My mistake. Thank you.
So a little different than Councillor Brennan. Anybody else want to? Councillor McGuire?
Thanks. My take on it was I'd prefer kind of both options, where if something egregious is happening and there's this provincial body that can come in and fix it, but also if it can be dealt with at the council level first, prefer to see it dealt at the council level, and then share Councillor Brennan's concerns about the scope of what's reflected in this legislation isn't necessarily as fine-tuned of the smaller, more common indiscretions that you'd probably still want to have a process for. So all that to say, though, I don't know how much anybody at the province reads this feedback, so I don't know.
As I understand it, this is specifically for very serious, when you've harmed someone else, I think the 4 categories. So it's not for our run-of-the-mill indiscretions. You have to do a lot of, it's serious harm to an individual or person, so to the health and well-being and safety. So it's a pretty significant, otherwise we'll deal with it with our local integrity commissioner if it's a code of conduct issue. That's how I understand it.
Yeah, I guess it's just how high of a bar. I don't know what the sweet spot is for that
It says
that line, but it might be
serious harm
That's
to
a
the
very-
health, safety, well-being of another person.
That's a very high bar to.
Okay.
I guess in my head, there's a lot you can do that would disqualify you from serving on council before it gets to that point. But
CO Morris?
On that note, I think I'm missing an oversight is the absence of a definition around serious. That has to be defined, regardless of who makes the decision. So I think that would be an appropriate comment for this council.
Councillor Miller was referring to a situation in another municipality where the person, there was a time when evidence like that was brought forward that the municipal councillor would hand in the resignation and go away. And that person, in spite of all the evidence and public ridicule, refused to do so. And so this was left, we were left, because there was a time people would step aside out of with shame and embarrassment, but perhaps those days are, it's unfortunate we have to go down this road. So anyways, anybody else wants to speak on this? Mayor Panko?
Yeah, I'm agreeable that it come back to a council for a final decision, but I think, like the OMAA indicates, like a 2/3 majority would be my preference.
Okay.
I don't think 100% would ever be achievable, or rarely would be achievable, and I think the 50-50 or 50+1 might be a little low bar for that. But I think also the provincial IC should also have the authority. You can make a recommendation to council. I don't know what appeal process there is as well. There's no indication here that I've seen of an appeal process that could always push it back to the provincial integrity commissioner if the council gets locked in. Right, so you get a lot of councils which are odd numbers, depending on what the decision was. If it was 50-50 and you're missing one council member, you've got 5-member councils, now you've got deadlock to it too, right, as well. So I don't think it's quite, I don't think it achieves exactly what I'd like to see it achieve. And I think it still leaves too many openings for situations not getting resolved. But, so when it comes to options as presented, I think it's, I guess option B would be, I guess, really which one would, but having a 2/3 majority is probably the closest to my preference.
Okay. Well, we're a little not unanimous here. Councillor Miller was certainly open to letting the provincial integrity commissioner do their job and have the authority to remove a council member. Councillor Brennan wanted it to come back, as did the mayor, to the municipal council for, let's say, ratification. The mayor is suggesting 2/3. Councillor Brennan was suggesting simple majority. Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with 2/3, and I think that's what Robin had mentioned too, which in her remarks from AMO, so.
Okay.
And the OMAA.
Yeah.
And I'm also hearing that we're all pleased to have this legislation coming forward, and it fills a gap that was there before. Councillor Robinson?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of leaning towards option B with a 2/3 majority, but I would also like to see the provincial integrity commissioner involved in making the recommendation to council. That this is the way it should be, and then leave the ball in our court. But I don't want to just leave it up to one person in Toronto to make a decision for our municipality. And so if they deem it necessary, then send it back to us with the recommendations. And then if we have a 2/3 majority, then we can move on.
I'm seeing some nodding. Councillor McGuire?
For me, for the smaller stuff, that process is good. But when I look to neighboring examples, that 2/3 majority is hard to meet even in egregious cases that are well laid out. And it just hasn't worked in those examples close to home. So I like the idea of having, in a worst case scenario, there's this independent provincial body that can step in and remedy the situation, because I know in Pickering they've also had problems too, right, where they can't get rid of it, somebody who's misbehaving. So I like that idea. The worst case scenario, when something continues to happen and the behavior doesn't change, that at least there's that out for the really severe behavior. But yeah, I'm not, any new legislation like this, there's a lot of what ifs, of hard to see how it'll actually play out.
So I think if as CEO Moore said, if we had the definition of serious, because that's what was missing. Well, there was no way to get rid of somebody. So now we will have tools. We don't have to send anything back.
That's right.
August 18th. We could just say we've had this discussion. We're closely aligned. However, if you want to submit something, we have probably by next week to get the clerk time to put something together and respond. We could just call it a good discussion, that we're pleased with the legislation. We could say that we'd like to see the definition of serious in there, but we're close to something here that that option B, where it's not serious. Mayor Penfield.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to provide feedback that 100% of council will have to agree to dismissal. That's just, we're basically where we are right now. I don't think we'd ever hit that bar. So I think we should at least suggest that if we agree that a 2/3 majority versus 100%, unanimous.
Any final thoughts, Councilor Rivera?
I guess just the idea in my head that stops me from supporting that would be that a council with a 2/3 majority could eject members. It could be used, like, I don't know what the safeguard would be to keep it from being used maliciously. So at least if it's that independent third party.
I think that's a report coming from the Provincial Integrity Commissioners to the council that is laid out the evidence and is recommending that. Council could either agree or not agree. It isn't.
That's the part, yeah. If they,
we wouldn't initiate the removal.
Yeah.
Someone could complain and send it up to our local integrity commissioner or the provincial if it met that bar, and then we'd wait to hear back. We wouldn't have that. We can't kick somebody off council through our own investigation. That's what I understand. Is that correct? CEO Morse is not. Yeah. Is that? Okay.
Recent events have made me think about this stuff more than I ever wanted to.
No, there was a big gap. So there is support for submitting comments back with the definition of what serious actually means. That and what I've heard is the majority of council would like to see a 2/3 vote if the provincial integrity commissioner recommended removal of the councillor. Then it would require, that's our advice, is 2/3 majority, and that we're pleased to see the legislation making its way slowly through the process.
Mr. Chair, if I can just ask what council, what their feeling is regarding a minimum standard for a code of conduct, and that we adapted to our own, or if there's just a provincial standard that all municipalities adhere to. If anybody has any comment on that one.
I do, but I'll see if anybody else does. I like a provincial standard, set the bar. If we say, oh, well, that's good for Carleton Place, but our standards are much higher here, then I think it just goes up, and we'll have a bit of a mix up all around Ontario. Councillor Brennan?
I would agree. I just add in there that mandatory training will be provided by the province.
Right. I just wonder if we all get to raise the bar or not raise it above the minimum. you'd have neighboring municipalities being able to remove somebody or be able to sanction somebody, and the next one over, you couldn't for the exact same thing based on the whim of council. And maybe council likes that independence. But those are just,
I'm fine with that too.
all right. Does that help?
So our majority want provincial, standardized. Okay. Thank you.
At minimum, I'm sure that will be good. Cecile Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the items that I think we should consider is if it is a provincial code of conduct that we want to, I think it's important that they embed the requirements to follow workplace violence and harassment policies. Ours, I believe, does. But that's important because most of the tumult and indiscretions and friction come from harassment or not respecting others. This is a workplace under the Act, so I would hope the province would include it, but I think we should go the extra step to ask that it be included.
Yeah, it's all laid out there. So it's already written, the Workplace Health and Safety Act, right?
Correct.
It's all in there. Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm seeing nodding heads.
Thank you.
And you have more than
I've got direction.
about 3 weeks to get sent back to the
Will
province.
do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last on our agenda is the local 1593 firefighters collective agreement with CO Morris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm happy to report that we've concluded collective bargaining with our partners within the Fire Association. But before beginning, I just want to make a note that the report that was originally attached to the agenda was a draft and contained a few errors. That's been corrected. I think today the correct one was posted. So I'll read from the final draft. Not a huge difference, but I will point out the differences as I go through it. So I think what's important is that the collective agreement, the previous one, expired at the end of December 2024. We actually started negotiating and collective bargaining. We exchanged proposals on November 26th of last year. The original report said February of this year. Not a big difference, but I just want to demonstrate that we've been at this for some time. And then we continued those discussions into 2025. Our last meeting was on June 26th, where we aligned on the various proposals. So I'll just go through them quickly and preface this by saying the matters or the requests that the association brought to us generally reflect benefits or items that are in a lot of collective agreements for fire services across the province. And obviously, as an association, they want uniformity and consistency across the province. As employers, we may or may not agree with that, but there are certain things that an arbitrator would likely agree with. And I think that's what's important. And I'm not saying this was going to go to arbitration. We have a great working relationship with the association, the local, and the provincial rep, and it went quite smoothly. But we felt, as part of our contemplations of the request, that there were certain things that might an arbitrator might decide in favor of the association. And the first one is certainly one of them. Truth and Reconciliation Day is something that's fairly standard in collective agreements with fire locals. So that's one item. Group benefits, we agreed on increasing it from $1,500 a year to $2,000. I'm sorry, Article 12, I skipped ahead. Article 12 is a new benefit. It's a health spending account for retirees. Something we're seeing as becoming fairly commonplace in fire collective agreements. And this would provide a spending account of $1,500 for every retiree between the ages of 65 and 75. And we've requested a whole number of provisions, qualifications, and criteria that the person would have to meet in order to access this benefit. One is that you'd have to be employed for 20 years. You would have to be on an unreduced pension, and so on and so forth. So it's not everyone that gets this. You have to have made a commitment to the employer for a significant period of time in order to qualify for this post-retirement benefit. And I should also point out that it's mandated that frontline firefighters, their mandatory retirement age is 60, not 65. So there would be a 5-year period where they wouldn't necessarily have access to this. The other criteria I think that's worth noting is they would need to exhaust provincial benefits that are available, whether it be dental, drug plans, whatever it might be, would need to be exhausted before they could access the health spending account. So we put, I think, some provisions around it that reflect best practices across the province. So moving along, dental prescriptions. So this is the one, the paramedical amount is currently, or was, $1,500. We agreed, the negotiating committee agreed to moving it to 2,000. I should point out that's consistent with what our non-union group get at this point. We also agreed on a $300 wellness benefit, again, a benefit that our non-union staff get. Article 30 is a fairly small one. This is paying for costs incurred to secure a DZ license. We had the same thing with CUPE. Those costs have increased since we last negotiated. So that would go, if approved, from $100 to $150. Fairly small cost corporately. We negotiated a 4-year agreement rather. We went back and forth on this every time we got together. As the employer, we were looking for a 5-year. They were looking for a 3. We landed on a 4. The salary adjustments landed at 4% per year. And while that seems a little bit high in comparison to inflation, we do know when we looked at our comparators that there's a discrepancy between what we've historically paid firefighters, and it's all based on what a first-class firefighter makes. So we felt that this would close that gap over time. The other element to that is that lieutenants, so officers, get a premium over a traditional first-class firefighter. We have 3 lieutenants. They currently make 107% of what a first-class firefighter makes for salary. The request was to increase that to originally 115. We did not agree with that. We landed on 110 over the life of the collective agreement. So it would be 1%. So they would go from 107% to 108 in 2026 and 1% per year after that until they reach 110%. The FPO, that's the fire prevention officer, is at 112. We all agreed to leave it at 112. In addition to the items I just mentioned, we also crafted and agreed on a letter of understanding. And this deals specifically with the need for more dispatchers. So as you know, we have many contracts for dispatching services. We do our own dispatching, of course. We do dispatching for Lanark County, and we dispatch for, I think, 16 other municipalities. There is demand. We get requests routinely for dispatching service. So we felt in order to move and cross that threshold to take on new contracts that we needed more resources to do that, and I fully agree with that. We're at capacity. We cannot take more calls based on our current arrangement. So this letter of understanding would define the terms of engagement around dispatchers, and typically it's fairly typical in the industry for a dispatcher to make a percentage of what a first-class firefighter would make. So we went back and forth on this many times, and we landed on the increment that you see. In year 1, a dispatcher would make 52% of a first-class firefighter's salary. Year 2, 57. Year 3, 62. Year 4, 67, capping at 71%. So a dispatcher can only make 71% of a first-class firefighter at the top of the grid. We're seeing this move up a little bit in other collective agreements that we researched, but we feel this is a good start, a good starting point. So all of that to say that both negotiating teams aligned on this. It's important to note there are monies in the 2025 budget to fund the changes that we're proposing in 2025. Again, it'll be, of course, retroactive to January 1st of this year, and we'll budget accordingly in 2026. The additional dispatchers, it's worth noting, we agreed to hire up to 4, depending on the number of contracts we get, and therefore the amount of revenue we have to pay for those additional bodies. So the dispatching work is entirely self-funded. So there will be an initial cost to hire them, but once the revenue starts flowing, it will offset the costs and then some. We're obviously not doing this as a charity. We're doing it to offset the taxes that Smith Falls residents pay towards our fire service. And we're trying to keep that as affordable as we can. So by taking on more work, we're able to increase our revenue flow. So I think that's probably the salient points of the agreement. There are some nuances and details, but generally I think that covers the essence of what we're proposing.
Thank you very much, Sir Morris, and thank the chief for us as well, and the firefighters as well. Questions or comments? Sounds like a fair and reasonable and mutually agreed upon, which is the most important, and over the next 4 years. So I'm seeing nods and thumbs up around the table, and you have consensus to move this forward to council for ratification.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we are going to go in camera. You're welcome to stay. We'll be in the room next door. I'm not sure how long. And I have a recommended motion that Council of the Corporation of Town of Smith Falls, as provided in section 239 of the Municipal Act, as amended, move into closed meeting at 6:23 to discuss a proposed acquisition or disposition of land. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? So we'll be back in due time. welcome back. We've just come out of a closed session where we provided direction to staff on the either proposed acquisition or disposition of land. And we thank you for your patience. We're moving on to item 11 on our agenda. And I'm just asking if there's any board or organizational updates. Seeing none. Any items of information or correspondence? Seeing none. No notice of motions. So we have a recommended motion from Councillor Robinson that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:56 and said so adjourn at the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Do I need a seconder for the agenda?
Robinson,
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to this meeting of Smiths Falls Town Council for Monday, July 14th, 2025. On July 14th, 2025, we acknowledge that the sacred land which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and has rich Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We're mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land to each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:59 p.m. Motion for approval of the agenda is with Councillor Miller, please.
thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson that the July 14th, 2025 special council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller, second by Councillor Robinson, that the July 14th, 2025 special council meeting agenda be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I'll ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest in general nature thereof. I see none. No approval of minutes. Any reports from anyone tonight? Councillor Robinson.
Very quick. Thank you. I attended the Chamber of Commerce breakfast meeting last Wednesday, and there was a topic that came up that I found quite interesting. Leslie gave us the figures for boat traffic in the basin so far this year up until, I believe, the first of last week, and it's down 40% from last year. And they're thinking that a lot of that has to do with the, what do they call it, the Great Loop, and wanting to get to the LaSalle Causeway so that they can get through on Sunday. So that's the reason for the drop. And that's it.
Very unfortunate. Thank you. Councillor Ware.
Sorry, just so their traffic's relatively the same, but the overnight stays.
They're not, yeah, overnight stays are down 40%, but there is movement through.
And I understand very few large crafts, exception of what would be the Great Loopers. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No. We have no presentations or proclamations. We have No consent agenda, just a few pieces of business to look after. Our first is with Councillor Brennan, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to adopt the 2025 Asset Management Plan be received and read the first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McKenna. The bylaw to adopt the 2025 Asset Management Plan be received at a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, please, Councillor Brennan.
Well, this is a monumental document, and I applaud staff for putting it together with a consultant because it charts every asset that we own, whether it be a road, a building, and everything in between, equipment, and it categorizes it as its condition. So when is it going to need to be replaced? How are we going to pay for it? And that goes out 15 years. It's going to be a living document, so it's going to be updated. And I think Director Dauber mentioned that it would be a small update next year because of new data coming in. So this is going to be very, very helpful for us and future councils.
Thank you. Any further comments? Third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to adopt the 2025 Asset Management Plan be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 106/28/2025.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor McKenna, excuse me. The bylaw to adopt the 2025 Asset Management Plan be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10628-2025. All in favor? It's all carried. Thank you. And Councillor McKenna, you're up next.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller. That a bylaw to award contract 25 PW003 for trenchless cured in place pipe program to Clean Water Works Inc. and authorize execution of an agreement with Clean Water Works Inc. in the amount of $233,132, excluding HST. Be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor Miller. The bylaw to award contract 25-PW-003 for the trenchless cured in place pipe program to Clean Water Works Inc. and authorize execution of an agreement with Clean Water Works Inc. in the amount of $233,132, excluding HST. Be received, read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McKenna.
Yes, Public Works, as part of their annual plan, have identified this particular stretch of pipe that runs between the Memorial Center and the Youth Center as a good candidate for the trenchless method of repair. And by doing this, we would add about 50 years, service years of life to that stormwater, wastewater pipe. They had budgeted in our 2025 budget $200,000 for this. Unfortunately, it was the best bid we got was about $33,000 over that. So it's we're approving a $233,000 expenditure, or about $940 per meter. Fun fact, as CEO Morse pointed out, it's an Ovid pipe we're putting in, and I think it's good technology at the best price we could get in today's market.
Thank you. May I have a third reading, please?
Again, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller, that a bylaw to award contract 25 PW003 for trenchless cured in place pipe program to Clean Water Inc. and authorize execution of an agreement with Clean Water Works Inc. in the amount of $233,132, excluding HST. Be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10629-2025.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor McKenna and seconded by Councillor Miller. The bylaw to award contract 25-PW-003 for trenchless cured in place pipe program to Clean Water Works Inc. and authorize execution of an agreement with Clean Water Works Inc. in the amount of $233,132, excluding HST. Be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10629-2025. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor McKenna, you have our next piece of business. McGuire, sorry.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw authorizing execution of an agreement with Tay Valley Township for the provision of building inspection services on a cost recovery basis be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor McKenna. The bylaw to authorize an execution of an agreement with the Tay Valley Township for the provision of building inspection services on a cost recovery basis be received, read a first time, and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, please.
We have building inspection service capacity and they have a building inspection service need. So we're signing this agreement to make good use of our resources and get some cost recovery.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, third reading, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw authorizing execution of an agreement with Tay Valley Township for the provision of building inspection services on a cost recovery basis be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10630-2025.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor McKenna. The bylaw authorizes execution of an agreement with Tay Valley Township for the provision of building inspection services on a cost recovery basis be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10630-2025. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor Robinson.
Thanks, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a collective agreement with the Smiths Falls Professional Firefighters Association, IAAFF Local 1593, be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a collective agreement with the Smiths Falls Professional Firefighters Association, IAFF Local 1593, be received, read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Discussion, please, Councillor Robinson.
Yes, this has been going on negotiation-wise since November, I believe, 2024. And you know, things have gone back and forth, and they finally come up with a 4-year agreement. They wanted a 5-year, but firefighters wanted a 4 year, so that's fine. But it's a good agreement, and it should bring them, with the increases, should bring them up to par with other services around in our comparators. So that's it.
Any further comments? May I have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McKenna, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a collective agreement with the Smiths Falls Professional Firefighters Association, IAFF Local 1593, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10631-2025.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor McKenna. A bylaw to authorize execution of a collective agreement with the Smiths Falls Professional Firefighters Association, IAFF Local 1593, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10631-2025. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Any inquiries or announcements? Well, then I'm correct. We have no meeting next week, or do we?
There is a meeting on the 2 meetings on the 21st,
Okay.
and then we have a 2-week break.
Okay. Thank you. And motion for adjournment is with Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:09 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Brennan. This council adjourns proceedings at 7:09 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.